This episode is brought to you by Galileo FX, the world's top trading bot. Galileo uses advanced algorithms and customizable strategies to enhance efficiency, reduce errors, and operate 24/7, providing a significant advantage over traditional manual trading. Go to galileofx.com to learn how you can start automating your trades today. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the BlockHash podcast. Today, we have on another wonderful, exciting guest, Catherine, head of marketing for Space and Time, where they are scaling ZK proofs on a decentralized data warehouse to deliver trustless data processing to smart contracts. We're going to talk about Space and Time today and their architecture, some things that they're working on and stuff in their ecosystem. So Catherine, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Happy Monday.
Awesome. Happy Monday. To kick things off, let's start with a little bit about you. I'm sure people would love to know a bit about your background and your story. Everyone's got an interesting story getting into the Web3 industry. So what's your journey been like, and how did that eventually lead to Space and Time?
Yeah, so I got into crypto lightly at the height of the last bull. And I say lightly because at the time, knew nothing about really blockchain technology or smart contracts or what crypto can enable in the world. It was just, to me, like, began and ended with a financial asset. So like crypto to me was Bitcoin, Ethereum, and NFTs, and that was it. But that was sort of my entry point. And then in early 2022, I was working at a marketing agency that serviced the semiconductor industry. So, like, very traditional tech, kind of like old guard Web 2. And my friend Scott Dykstra reached out to me and said they needed help with marketing on this cool new Web3 crypto startup he was doing. And I was like, well, that sounds a lot more fun than semiconductors. So I'm in. And so I joined Space and Time in 2022 in a very junior role. I think my first title was marketing content lead. And I've just really spent the last 3 years like dedicated to growing and investing in the Space and Time community. I think when I joined, like, we were very small community in Twitter following, maybe like 1 to 2,000 people. And now we're at like almost 500,000. So it's been an awesome journey to kind of see that from the start and take it from 0 to 1, and move into the role that I am in now as head of marketing. And I think that's one of the really exciting things about a startup environment or like a crypto environment is there's really no ceiling to your career and no limit on how fast you can grow and accelerate. And in my case, at least, like, I got to work directly with people that I probably wouldn't have at like a bigger or more traditional company, who have really like poured into my growth as a leader. So I've been really fortunate to be mentored by Nate and Scott, and just get to bump elbows with some really awesome, impressive people, just at this point in my career. So I'm really grateful.
That's awesome. The crypto landscape is definitely much faster than I imagined the semiconductor space,
Yeah,
for
no, like
sure.
they say, a year in crypto is like 5 years in the regular world. Well, it's probably more like 20 in the semiconductor world.
Oh yeah. Um, have you noticed any difference in terms of like the way one would go about marketing in this space versus like semiconductors or being in Web 2? Because I know crypto is just a whole different beast and landscape in and of itself, and it's constantly evolving. Just curious, like if there's like a big step up in how you approach marketing in this space versus, something that is a bit more traditional.
Yeah, it's so different. It's really like night and day. I think in traditional marketing, like, for one, like you said, it just moves a lot slower. And in crypto, things are changing literally every day, and something that might work today doesn't necessarily work 3 months from now, or even a month from now. So you really have to be really in tune with the industry and on your toes. I think that's something very different. Certainly, I knew a lot about the semiconductor industry when I was in it, but I definitely was not immersed in it the way I'm immersed in crypto, partially because I'm a lot more passionate about crypto, but also because it's sort of a requirement of the job. You really have to be part of the crypto community to build community in crypto. And that's the other big difference too, right? Web2 marketing is entirely focused on customer acquisition and sales, especially more B2B stuff like semiconductors was. Your entire objective is to generate revenue for the business's shareholders. And while that's also true in crypto, it's very different because the business's shareholders are its community, right? It's their community owned businesses. So it's not the same as like you just want to generate revenue and you just want to generate sales to make some people at the top more money. It's you want to accelerate this vision that you have together and this thing that everyone believes in so that we can all share in the success. So it's really cool, and it's frankly a lot more fun from a marketing perspective because you're not just like creating growth campaigns to drive clicks to then drive revenue, right? You're really getting to sort of pioneer and kind of get into the trenches of like, okay, what is the reason that all of these people believe in us and how can we accelerate that together?
Absolutely. It's definitely a much more exciting space, a lot more fun. And it's cool to be in a space too where, like you mentioned, the shareholder oftentimes is part of the community, where the community itself shares in, participating in the investment side of a lot of these different projects. And so getting to engage with them and feel that energy probably is a lot easier to market and work content with than, a traditional industry where it's money in, profit out, satisfy a shareholder. It's probably a lot more bland.
Yeah. And I mean, just in general, as like somebody working in Web3, like you as an employee of that company or that project, like have more incentive, more direct incentive to do well in it as well. So it's not just the community that's sharing in that success. It's you as an employee participant as well. So I just think it's a much healthier ecosystem where everybody wins and makes something like marketing, like you said, just so much more exciting and fun.
100%. That's why I love this space too. And so, what are you guys working on with Space and Time? What's your guys' core mission per se, and what you guys are trying to tackle?
Yeah. So Space and Time is like a very technical developer facing project for sure. But our mission is, I would say, actually really simple. It's pretty much just to enable more sophisticated crypto apps. Everyone knows that crypto has an app problem, right? Like that is kind of the topic of the year, I would say, at least in the circles I'm in, right? You see people on Twitter all the time talking about how we have a gajillion L2s and not enough apps. And apps are what onboard people. Apps are what bring people into the space. And the apps we do have, like, you know, don't necessarily have as smooth of a UX as their traditional counterparts, which also inhibits adoption. I mean, I think we've certainly come a long way in terms of UX, but I still think we have a long way to go. And, this might be ironic to talk about as someone who is coming from an infra project because everyone's like, why do we need more infra? But I do think that part of solving the app problem means that infra focused protocols like Space and Time have to build with apps and the end users that use them in mind. So you have to ask yourself, like, what problem are you solving for them, the end user, even if what you're building, doesn't touch them directly. And so for us, that problem was that crypto apps, are obviously built using smart contracts, and smart contracts don't have a lot of access to data. Every app in the world outside of crypto uses a database, and blockchains are kind of a very simple version of that, right? Like basically a very rudimentary database built to record very simple transactions. But what they can't do is they can't store the scale of data required to power like an actual enterprise grade app. And more importantly, smart contracts, which are the like computation engines that run on these little mini databases we call blockchains, can't perform the types of computations over that data that regular databases can. Like aggregating, for example, something that's simple. A smart contract on its own can't look over the entire history of Ethereum and aggregate even one wallet's transaction history. Something that simple has to be offloaded to something like a database. But the problem is a decentralized, verifiable, smart contract connected database didn't exist before Space and Time. So developers building crypto apps have historically been forced to choose between either building something that's fully on chain, a fully on chain app that's very basic in what you can do with it and limited by these constraints of smart contracts, or leveraging a centralized, non verifiable, like trust required database that then becomes a single point of failure in their stack. So when we set out to build Space and Time, we basically said, what if we built a database on blockchain rails, one that smart contracts could trust because the data is A, stored on a decentralized network, and B, the computation is done off chain, but in a way that can be verified by smart contracts. And it's been 3 long years of hard work from some of the most like insane gigabrain minds in databases in ZK, but we did it. We built essentially a blockchain for ZK proven data, a decentralized database network that operates at the scale of an enterprise database with the verifiability of a traditional blockchain. So now, app developers who are building, the next big crypto app to onboard 1 billion users have exactly what they need to do it, right? They've got the blockchain for transactions and state management, smart contract for logic execution, and Space and Time as their decentralized, ZK proven, crypto native database, or as we call it, the blockchain for ZK proven data. So that was a very long winded answer to say we're all about empowering developers to build better crypto apps.
That's awesome. It's cool to see you guys approaching the data availability side of this space too, because I don't hear that as often. There's definitely some issues that you touched on. L2s being a little too predominant in the space. I think that's being shown in the market too. A lot of L2s are suffering a bit this year, and I think that's partially why there's too many of them out there, too much competition, not enough focus on things like UI and UX. That's been a long standing issue that's keeping people from interacting with these applications and being a part of the space. And then the data accessibility issue, which I think is very fascinating that you guys are working on. How does your guys' architecture kind of help facilitate this in terms of talking about things like verifying blockchain data? What do you guys leverage? How does your architecture kind of fit into making this happen? What are some of the key components, I guess, that should be mentioned?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the number one thing that enables this for us and is the reason nobody has been able to do it before is we invented and built a ZK coprocessor specifically for SQL. So let's zoom out a bit and zoom back in on what that means. So we talked about earlier, smart contracts are computation engines that run on blockchains, but they're super rudimentary in the types of computations they can perform. And specifically on Ethereum mainnet, they're expensive to run. And so there's been a lot of focus in the industry on scaling blockchains and a lot of different approaches to that. But the one that we're most bullish on is ZK. You've got ZK EVMs and rollups, right? Those offload transactions from Ethereum and simple smart contract computation off of Ethereum and prove it back. And then ZK coprocessors, which are computation engines that sit next to the chain to perform computation off chain and then prove it back to a smart contract, which allows smart contracts to access more complex computations than they can do natively and also save on gas, right? By not having to do those on chain. And this is essentially what Space and Time does as well. We're proving database computation, SQL computation, back to a smart contract. We built a ZK coprocessor for SQL. There are a lot of cool teams out there that are building this for like generalized computation. But the problem with those is that generalized ZK coprocessors are really slow. It's really hard to prove computation in ZK. It takes a lot of time and computation power. So we decided to hyper focus on one use case, which is SQL databases, and just do everything we could to make that hella fast. So we built our own like GPU accelerator called Blitzar. We built our own novel circuit from the ground up. And now we're seeing sub-second proof times for millions of rows of data, which, might not mean much to you if you're not like really into the ZK coprocessor space, but that's insane. It's like orders of magnitude faster than other ZK coprocessors out there. And this is the core technology that enables our decentralized database to deliver data to smart contracts. And again, the reason why no one's built it before, it requires ZK. It requires some way to prove off-chain computation in a database back to a smart contract. And really, it requires it to be done in real time. Because if you think about an application or like an enterprise use case, they can't wait minutes for a ZK proof to come back. Certainly not like hours, which it can be if you're aggregating enough data. It needs to be as close to real time as possible. And that's what we've accomplished with our ZK coprocessor, sub-second proof times over millions of rows of data. And so, really what this enables is, like I said, smarter smart contracts that have access to data processing off chain, and therefore more sophisticated apps that can mirror the sophistication of traditional apps using traditional databases, but in a verifiable and crypto native way.
Is this something that's pretty unique in the space? Because I haven't heard of this before. It sounds pretty unique to space and time.
It is unique to space and time for sure. I mean, there, like I said, a lot of teams building generalized ZK coprocessors, which we're also really bullish on and fills a really important need. But in terms of SQL database ZK coprocessors, we literally invented it. Our head of research, Jay White, is like an insane gigabrain in ZK and cryptography, and he's got like really the best team in the world behind him, and what they've been able to accomplish in a short time's very impressive to me, at least.
It is very impressive. I also saw an article in CoinDesk that kind of alludes to how impressive this is. A $20 million Series A raise. Congrats on that, by the way. That's an awesome accomplishment. I'm curious how this will help you guys as well, as a milestone to accelerate some of these things and the development around decentralized data ownership, AI tools, and any other types of applications that you guys are hoping to have built on top of the space and time chain.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we raised a Series A last year. We're really excited to have Microsoft and other big firms participate. Something kind of unique about space and time in the crypto space is that our funding almost totally goes into research and engineering. We've spent the last however many minutes talking about what we've built, and it's hard work building databases and hard work building ZK. If you look at like traditional database counterparts like Snowflake or Databricks, they raise like 5 times or more what we have, because it really is, it's an expensive investment. But that's what we're committed to, and that's what we've always been committed to doing for the industry. And we've got some exciting things on the horizon. Of course, we're going to continue to develop the performance of our ZK coprocessor. We're always going to want to make that faster, always going to want to pour more time and resources into that. Space and time chain mainnet is just around the corner for us, so that's something we're really building towards as well. But something that I'm really excited about that I want to tease is something we're co-engineering with Microsoft, and that is an AI app generator for crypto apps. So to kind of again zoom out and then zoom back in, I've been talking about this like vision we have to empower more sophisticated crypto apps. And we really want to take space and time a step further from just being the database for crypto apps to being sort of the one-stop shop for people who want to build a business in crypto. And so what that looks like is, you can build your app with space and time, and we're working on this AI app generator to make it really easy for anyone to build an app, regardless of whether you have development experience or not, right? Building apps with natural language, something like a Lovable, but specifically for crypto. So that's on the horizon, which is really exciting. Then you need to be able to tokenize, right? Monetize with tokenization. So last year, we added a product called Space and Tokens, formerly known as Senate Finance, to our product suite and brought their team on board, which has been really exciting because now, as part of Space and Time, you have this tool to develop a token economy around the business that you're creating. And then you
That's the
also need,
simulator, right? The space and
yeah,
token simulator. Okay.
yeah, Space and Token Simulator. It's super cool stuff. And then you also need a way to develop and deploy that to your community. And so very recently, within the last few weeks, we've also added Blaze, a marketing product, to the Space and Time suite, which allows people to develop their community on Twitter and Discord and reward that community for their actions, and generate more like leads among developers who could use their product. And so when you put that all together, it's really this entire tool suite for anyone to come off the street, right? Like a kid or someone who's never touched crypto before, or someone who's never had any development experience like me, to just come off the street and create an application for whatever business idea they have, tokenize and monetize that, develop their community, and create this entire business and livelihood around it, which we think is really going to be more important than ever as AI takes over and traditional industries are stomped out by AI, traditional jobs are stomped out by AI. We think crypto in general, blockchain in general, and this tool suite that we're building is going to become really critical for people to like win in the AI economy. And so that's what we're seeking to empower for the next generation. So this last Series A raise and our continued partnership with Microsoft, their continued investments in us are really exciting to be able to build that.
That's interesting. I want to touch on that a little bit more too. I don't know how much you can in regards to the partnership with Microsoft there, but in terms of AI being used to help launch these applications, build these applications, is that going to help substitute for having to know the code where you can maybe like prompt the AI and it'll build it out for you and create it? Like, is that kind of like the direction that it's aiming to go?
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you mentioned our partnership with Microsoft in conjunction with that because it really is that has kickstarted all of this. They invested in us like early in the day back in 2022, and from the start, really pushed us in the direction of AI. Right, like we were solely focused on blockchain and smart contracts and enabling more sophisticated crypto apps, but the team at Microsoft was really pushing us to get into AI. And so what we started with was co-engineering with them this natural language prompt to SQL generator, right? So developers or people rather using our database could prompt natural language queries about their data and have that turn into SQL. So that's live. That's been live for almost 2 years now. And that really just enables people to ask questions about data on chain or their own data, get back answers without having to know how to write SQL. You can build dashboards with it, etc. And that's really cool. Generation two is what we've been building with them since, which is this AI app generator, exactly what you said, prompt to app. So we started building prompt to SQL, then we built prompt to dashboard, now we're building prompt to app. And so what that's going to look like is like you or I don't know if you know how to code. I don't. Can yeah, okay, so you or I can jump on this new app and say, build me an app for swaps, or build me a decentralized social app, or something completely unrelated to crypto. Build me an app for my like Etsy shop type thing, anything like that. And it'll actually generate what that front end looks like. And then you can say, oh, I don't like how that component looks. Let me change it. Or I want the colors to be different, or I want to move this button here. And all of that through just natural language conversation with a chatbot. That's going to be version one. We're building some exciting stuff and feature sets out to actually be able to like generate smart contracts as well and sort of like monetize that on the back end. But yeah, we're looking at releasing this later this year, right around Space and Time Mainnet, and we're really excited to see the adoption in the community.
You mentioned Mainnet is not out yet, correct? Is there a date for that?
Yeah, we're in testnet right now. We launched testnet late last year around Chainlink SmartCon, and have just been working on testing and improving the network. We have a cohort of node operators that have been participating in our testnet. We're looking at mainnetting sometime next quarter is the target date. So building really fast towards that. I know our community is super excited about it. It's been a long time coming, and we're really excited to ship that to the community.
I'm curious if this could also work in reverse. We talked about AI helping to build applications, but with all this verifiable, provable data and data sets that you guys have, could that also be used to improve upon LLM models that are constantly consuming more and more data to improve themselves? Like, is there a way for that to work in reverse as well to build better AI?
Absolutely. I think verifiable data is and computation over data is really important for all industries, not just blockchain. And I think AI and the development of AI models is a really great example of that. We are actually working on just a POC with Microsoft and some major banks and auditors around this to see what that would look like to verify the training data that's being fed into LLMs, mostly for cases of like provenance and authenticity, right? So that when like a big bank has to go back and audit all of the things that the AI model touched, like you have provenance of that data from square one when it was being fed into the model. So it's very early stages, like I said, just a POC, but we do see that being kind of an emerging use case, especially as, I mean, you see a lot of like lawsuits right now around AI models. I think like just a good example, I forget who, but some big publication was sued a big AI provider for using like their articles in their models. And although those articles were since wiped from the training data, like they probably were used. There was just no way to prove that they were. And so this provenance of data and verifying data that's being used to train LLM models protects consumers. It protects, content creators and publications that have data that may be being used to train. And it also protects the deployers and users of these models to be able to say, like, no, I didn't train it on that. Here's the proof. So that's an exciting use case for space and time too.
Yeah, they say data is the new oil these days, and obviously there's been a lot of issues with data privacy and security, and what a lot of large big tech companies have done in terms of aggregating that data to build things like these
Mm-hmm.
LLMs and AI models. And this is where I think that blockchain and AI make a perfect marriage because you can actually, like you guys are doing, verify a lot of that data. You can decentralize that process and eventually build better, more neutral, more honest models, things that people I think have more confidence in over time. So I think that's going to be a really cool use case. And speaking of use cases, I'm curious what types of applications you guys will imagine coming out of this. Like, are these going to be primarily focused around AI? Will these be DeFi based, lending, gaming, other types of infrastructure or architecture? Or what do you guys imagine would be the best kinds of applications that could come out of space and time?
I mean, all of the above. I think the possibilities are limitless. Like I've said before, every application in the world uses a database. Databases are required for any type of application you can imagine. And so building this crypto native database that's compatible with smart contracts really opens up the floor for any kind of crypto app to be developed and any kind of app to be built on crypto rails. I would say the one we're most excited about for sure is DeFi. I think like we're all passionate about DeFi. DeFi is kind of the reason, like I'd say probably 90% of us got into this space in the first place, right? Like having crypto and blockchain technology revolutionize finance. And so that's the one we're definitely most excited about and seeing the most adoption with today. Um, just because the sophistication of DeFi is pretty stunted because of this lack of data access. So a lot of crypto apps, like games, for example, are fine or okay, like offloading data to centralized databases because verifiability doesn't necessarily matter that much for the use case. However, it always matters in DeFi. Anytime value is being secured, significant amounts of value on chain where it's immutable, people really care about like where that data is being processed or where it comes from, or is there centralized points of failure in the stack. And so DeFi is what we're most bullish on, and enabling more sophisticated DeFi. Like I'll give an example that we like to talk about is lending, right? You have traditional lending where you go to a bank and they give you a certain rate, and that's the loan that you get and you pay it off. And the more loans you pay off over time, the better rates you get and the better risk adjusted returns the bank gets or the lender gets. And then you have on-chain lending like Aave, which is really cool and a use case that's found a ton of product market fit in crypto. However, uh, on-chain lenders like Aave are still very rudimentary compared to traditional lendings in that they can't use the same data inputs to give people borrow rates as a traditional lender, right? Like maybe you've paid off 20 loans on chain and you have really good quote unquote credit, and I'm a first time borrower. Well, we're going to get the same rates, which means that you don't really necessarily get a benefit for having been a good borrower, and the lenders don't necessarily get, risk protection from me as a first time borrower, or, better returns from you as a seasoned borrower. And that's because that sort of data, that sort of aggregation, right? Like looking at your loan history, looking at mine, is not something a smart contract can do. It is, however, something space and time can do and prove back to a smart contract in a way that the borrower's lender's entire ecosystem can still trust is, tamper proof and verifiable. So that just opens up the space for something like Aave or other DeFi protocols to kind of catch up in terms of sophistication to their TradFi counterparts, which we think is going to open up the space for DeFi adoption, right? Like a huge reason that people don't adopt DeFi is because the UX is not the same as, a traditional counterpart. And so we're really excited about what that's going to enable both for DeFi protocols and especially for DeFi users.
Exciting. I'm excited to see what these applications look like once they start coming out. I'm sure it'll be very broad. What's on the horizon for you guys here in 2025? Obviously, there's Mainnet, but are there any new updates or key milestones that you want users to keep an eye out for? And then will you guys also be attending any events, engagements, conferences going on the rest of this year? Were you guys at ETH Denver, by the way, at all?
Yeah. We were. We did mostly like the side event circuit, but we were there, connected with the community, did a big activation with ZK Sync. They're close partners of ours, so it was a fun time.
What else are you guys going to do this year? Other than ETH Denver, what else is on the horizon?
I mean, the big thing for us is Mainnet for sure. That's the one everyone is kind of holding their breath waiting for. And then also the release of that AI app generator we talked about. Those are the two really big milestones we have on the horizon. We've definitely got some exciting performance updates for our ZK coprocessor coming as well. Some exciting partnership updates that we're stoked about. But yeah, Mainnet and our AIF generator are going to be the two big things this year. In terms of engagements, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm pretty last minute in how I plan our conference appearances. I like to see how the community is feeling about a particular conference before we commit to going to it or not. But I think something we're really bullish on is our community in the APAC region, the Asia markets. So we definitely want to, spend some time there, probably at some of those events later in the fall. And yeah, we'll be around. Looking forward to connecting with everyone.
Where can people keep up with you guys in terms of everything that's going on when some of these things are getting announced? And then is the best place to go the website, socials? You guys have a community where you want to direct people?
Yeah, follow us on Twitter at Space and Time DB and join our Discord, discord.gg/Space and Time DB. Those are our two main channels for updates. Discord's poppin'. Everyone in there is, hanging out as friends all the time, also talking about space and time, but talking about all kinds of other stuff as well. And we'd love to have you join.
Awesome. And then are there any developer docs if anyone wants to kind of dive into the architecture and ecosystem a little bit more and kind of get themselves brushed up on space and time by the time mainnet actually launches?
Yeah, you can visit our website, spaceandtime.io, to learn more. Our docs are linked off of there as well, docs.spaceandtime.io. And then if you want to play around with some of the stuff I talked about, our natural language to SQL, prompt to dashboard capabilities, just explore what data we have available. You can check out our app at app.spaceandtime.ai.
Awesome. Catherine, appreciate you taking the time today and telling us a bit more about what you guys are working on at Space and Time. I think it's awesome what you're doing, and keep me updated as well where you guys end up this year. We'll be going around and doing some stuff at different events with the podcast and interviewing people. So maybe we can link up and maybe do a part two at some point later this year.
Yeah, I love it. Let's do it. It was great to talk today. Thanks for having me.